Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends Leaders, and today it's great to have Howie here. Howie, you're one of the people that has, been the face of entertainment globally in so many different unique areas, and you've inspired millions and millions of people, whether it's through Deal or No Deal, and you've entertained them there through America's Got Talent, helping to start the careers of so many individuals, and really just giving people insight into what goes on in terms of trying to make an entertainment. And now you've got your own podcast that you've been breaking down a lot of great stories there. So I'm just excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. So,
Awesome.
where do we begin?
So, Howie, so let's begin with where did your passion for kind of, entertainment, wanting to be in comedy, the show business, how did this passion start? Did you have this when you were young? Did you think this is what I'm going to do with my life? How did this passion begin?
No, I didn't begin. I started my career on a dare. In the mid 70s, I was, I was somewhat of an outcast. Later on, because I'm, in my era, mental health wasn't really looked into. I've been since diagnosed with OCD and ADHD and anxiety and depression, but these were, dark clouds in my childhood. I had an incredibly loving and supportive family, but I didn't do well in school. I don't have a GED. I didn't have a lot of friends. In the mid 70s, this comedy boom began and people started opening up comedy clubs all over the world. And I'm from Toronto, Canada. Toronto opened a club called Yuck Yucks. I went to that because I was not a gambler, so I didn't have a poker game to go to. I didn't have friends. I was not athletic, so I didn't have a one-on-one basketball game to go to or anything to do. I didn't even play. I didn't skate. So I'm Canadian. I didn't have a hockey game to be part of. I didn't drink or dance. Disco was very big. So they opened a comedy club. I had never been to a comedy club. I went there. And somebody in the midst, the host was Mark Breslin, who's the owner of the club, said, on Monday nights at midnight, if you have any inkling and you think you could do this or want to do this, sign up and get up on stage. And somebody that was at my table said, you should do it. And by the thing that I've always done is I never, ever say no. Or try not to say no. I just always say yes. And that's for fear of, when I was a young kid, of missing out on something or, and now I use it as a philosophy, no is N-O, which is the first two letters in the word nothing. So nothing comes from no.
Huh.
And something always comes from yes. And even if most of the yeses are mistakes and dead ends, but even with that comes knowledge. So I said yes. And didn't prepare, didn't care to be in show business, didn't think about it, but it was kind of a funny scenario that somebody would go, ladies and gentlemen, Howie Mandel. And I would show up for there's no reason to be presented or to be in front of an audience. And that night, without any preparation, they went, ladies and gentlemen, Howie Mandel, and I didn't think it through. And I got up on stage, and lights were in my eyes, and I was blinded by that. And I looked down, I could see the microphone in front of me, and I could see the people sitting there. And I started to, my adrenaline started to pump, and terror started to begin. And if you look at old YouTube videos of me, I started going, oh, okay, all right, okay. And I couldn't think of anything. And because I have OCD, I put my hands in my pocket, and I always had rubber gloves with me because I'm a germaphobe. And I thought if I'm out in public, I'm going to be having to go to a public restroom, and I don't want to touch anything. And I took the glove out. I was just nervous. I didn't know what to do. I'm holding the glove, and I put the glove over my head, and I started breathing, and with my nose, they started going, and the audience started roaring. They were laughing, and at the big laugh, I let it pop off my head, and I went, good night, and I ran off the stage. And the owner of the club went, oh, that was so good, you should come back tomorrow. And I went, for what? And they said, do it again. I go, do what? Do whatever you did. And hence was born a place of solace and comfort. It was the first time. It was kind of fun. It was really scary. And I promise you this, if I was a janitor today, I would be thrilled and just as happy to have a place to do that once or twice a week. and just show up, because that's my happy place, regardless of anything that anybody knows me from, whether it's being a judge on AGT or whether it's, being a host or an actor or a voiceover guy. Stand-up comedy is like my primal scream. It is my panacea for, being in the moment. And so I just did it, and I did it because that was the thing to do. That was the pastime. And then I ended up going on a trip to California, but just a trip. And I had met people in the club, people like Mike Binder and Jay Leno, and who had come to the club that I was playing in Toronto. And Mike Binder got me a spot at the Comedy Store, and there happened to be somebody in the audience who had a comedy game show called Make Me Laugh. I did Make Me Laugh and flew home and continued working. I've always been, my entrepreneurial spirit outweighs my creative spirit, but I think they kind of blend together, because I always was working and always trying to make money. And I started getting calls to come back and do things, and I would commute back and forth, and I ended up just working. One thing leads to another, and now I'm on your podcast.
So why do you think that you kind of got noticed for the show opportunities? I mean, you could have, people were coming to your comedy shows. They thought, okay, this guy's got great comedic talent, but what do you think they saw in you in terms of the show business aspect and being more in like entertainment TV? Like, what do you think they noticed then?
I don't think anybody noticed anything. I think that the opportunities, I think we all have doors opening in front of us each and every day and each and every minute. And there's always, I think humanity is a superior species because of our instinct. The problem that we have is thinking. Thinking is not a good thing. Thinking gets you nowhere. It really, I think that you just, Nike has the best saying is just do it. And had I thought about any of this, I wouldn't have done it. I was 6 months into an engagement to be married. I was making a living. I have no connection whatsoever in show business. This is 3,000 miles away from where I'm from. I understand retail and sales and marketing, because you don't have to learn that. And I understand economy, because I think you only need like fourth grade math to figure out economy and how to make money. I don't think you have to be that smart. I think people think there's a formula. But the truth is, I just keep saying, okay. When I went back and when Make Me Laugh started appearing, started going, it was in the States. I started getting calls to go back and do a talk show. So I'd fly in and do a talk show. And then Gene Simmons from Kiss saw me on a talk show and hired me to be the opening act for his girlfriend, who was Diana Ross. And then George Carlin's wife had seen me there and hired me for a young comedian special. The young comedian special was hosted by the Smothers Brothers, and the other young comedians who were starting out. It was me, Jerry Seinfeld, Richard Lewis, and Harry Anderson were on that. And that kind of launched me into the stratosphere of comedy at the time. In the early 80s, I was playing out, 10,000 seats, 15,000 seats. But then I got an agent. The agent said, well, if you're doing really good in comedy, you should get a sitcom. That's what people are doing. That's what Robin Williams ended up doing, Mork and Mindy, and every other comic you can name at that time ended up with a sitcom. I went and met with a production company, and the woman asked if I knew how to act. I said, I don't know. She had me read a side. She goes, that's very good. Come down the hall. I read it again. It wasn't funny. I didn't know what it was. As it turns out, this company, MTM, Mary Tyler Moore's company, which was synonymous with the Mary Tyler Moore Show, Odd Couple, a lot of great situation comedy at the time. They were also doing their first drama, which was St. Elsewhere, and they had been, and Hill Street Blues, and they had been taping or filming it for about a week and didn't like some of the results. They wanted to recast. I didn't know that. They read me for a part and said, oh, you're great on Friday. Come in Monday and you can have it. And I went in Monday and I spent 6 years on a dramatic series. The people who watched, that's where Denzel came out of. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. It's not anything I aspired to do. But I was on that 3 days a week because it was a big cast of 26. I would go and do stand-up and other things. At that time, this is before the internet, people would write and go, I have a bet with my wife that the guy that's playing Dr. Fiscus on NBC is not the same guy that's blowing a rubber glove up over his head on tour. And when that part of my stand-up is I did this little voice. I had friends that I met at the comedy club that got a deal at Fox. Fox was starting a children's network. They said, that's a funny voice. We should do a Saturday morning cartoon. I said, I know nothing about Saturday morning cartoons. We started writing stories about things that happened to us or our children. I just started having kids. And I did Bobby's World. And Bobby's World became a huge international success. It was #1 on Saturday morning. We were the #1 Happy Meal. I'd never, tried to go into Saturday morning. I didn't try to be an actor. I didn't know I was going to be a comedian. I had no idea. Podcasting came out of the fact that during COVID, I was in lockdown because I'm over 60 and my daughter didn't want to visit me. So we started making phone calls on Zoom, prank phone calls and things like that on Zoom, and calling my friends and just having time and spending quality time like you and I are spending right now. And my wife came in and said, what is this for? And I said, it's for nothing. We're just hanging out. She goes, you should record it. That became the podcast, which is Howie Mandel Does Stuff, with my daughter, Jacqueline Schultz. It's really successful. It's going really great. Now it's not, I didn't set out to do a podcast. I never, and then I didn't trust that I didn't really understand the business of show, and I started making money, and I was so afraid because I left everything else that I wouldn't make money. So I started investing and I started doing real estate. And as I talk to you right now, I'm in this is my studio, but like right next door, other people are doing that you would know. Jason Alexander is doing a podcast right on the next wall, and Fox is shooting something. NBC is shooting something. This is a studio that I built, but I love real estate. I wasn't intending on going into real estate, but I had these buildings because I had a deal at Universal after Deal or No Deal came out. I didn't want to do a game show, but I wasn't doing anything at the time. My wife said, you need to be busy. She made me take the game show. That thing blew up. I would know that game show would be as successful as it is. And when I renegotiated for a production company. They gave me offices at Universal. I started producing. I put a lot of other shows on the air that I'm not in. And then I felt like I was throwing a party at my parents' house. So I ended up buying this space right here. And it's a production facility. So I can come in and be creative. This is where I do my podcast. This is where I take my meetings. But at the same time, I'm partners with technology companies that I found online. I'm with a hologram company called Proto, which is going to revolutionize e-commerce. They're partners now with Christie's. They've done $1.5 billion in business in art. I have a production company that, like, all these things are just kind of natural flows. I think the takeaway here is, if you think about anything, there's a reason not to do it. There's always more reasons not to do something. There's always more reasons of something failing, or you being humiliated, or you losing something, but if you don't think about that and you just do it, things will happen. I always say to people, the only difference between you and Elon Musk or you and Steve Jobs is they did it. It's crazy when you think about Steve Jobs. Here's a guy who left college. Did he have a great idea? Did he really have a great idea? IBM is doing it. He said, well, I'm going to come up with he's just passionate about coming up with a more expensive way to do things easier, so everybody should have a computer. Put yourself in that situation at that time. I remember, when you go to a store and there were cash registers, like I couldn't even fathom what I would do with a computer, let alone talk to you right now on a laptop that he is instrumental. He just did it. If you go and do it, it'll happen. Most people just won't do it. Elon Musk, his idea was, I come from retail. I was in the carpet business. If people wanted to pay with Visa or American Express or whatever, I had to go to my bank. They had to set me up with a little machine that I had to, charge the charge card machine. And then if you came into my store, I had to pay like 5 or 6% to the bank to allow them to pay me because you're using your credit card, that service. Think about what he thought. What was PayPal? PayPal was the ability to kind of curate everybody's cash register through one central bank. He probably gets, he could take 3%. And because he's got everybody's business, whoever he's doing business with is taking 1%. So he's taking 2% or a penny off of every sale of anybody using PayPal anywhere. It's kind of an easy, simple concept. But why would you do that? Why would you spend your time working on that? Because there's so many other things to do. I got to go to school. I got to get a fucking job. I got to go pay my rent. So I'm not going to do that and come up with this really easy idea. That you just don't do it. So that's my career is just and continues to be saying okay. And it really is. And I'm not being facetious and I'm not being, that's why I'm here today. I say okay to everything. Unless I really can't.
Right. So when they pitched you, Howie, on the idea for Deal or No Deal, what did it kind of look like at that time? Was it just because you were already involved in another game show at a point, and like what were you
On
kind of
another
thinking the show was
before
going to
that,
become?
I didn't want to. First of all, to be honest, as somebody, I learned my lesson the good way. I was going to say the hard way. I actually said no. They said that we want you to host a game show, and as somebody who was already considered a brand, I'm a comedian. And as a comedian, as an actor, the game show was the lowest rung on the totem pole. You just didn't, in 2005, comedians didn't, when your currency is irony, you don't want to be the game show host. Not that I'm negating them, but it was kind of funny. It's kind of you read trivia, you do like, what's the talent? It's kind of like when you were a movie star, you didn't do commercials. When you were, so I said no. And then when they showed me the game, I didn't really understand that. How's that a game? There's no skill. It's just luck. Like it didn't make any sense to me. And I said no. And my wife, and I thought it was a joke too. They presented me, they played the game. They came to a deli I was at, and he had a cardboard cutout of 26 little cases, which I have in the other room behind me. And he said, this is going to be big. And I go, okay. And I went and told my wife, and she said, just do it. This is the first time I'm saying no, but I listened to her. But I just thought it was like ridiculous. I thought I was being punked. And it turned out to the first thing that I was going to say no to was the biggest opportunity. It opened more doors than anything. And on paper, as a guy who had spent 6 years on a series, as a guy who was, known comedian, as a guy who had a successful Saturday morning cartoon show, I shouldn't be a game show host. Nobody has really done one. And when based on the success of that, they hired, the next hire was Jeff Foxworthy to do Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? And then Bob Saget did some shows, and now You're Welcome, Steve Harvey.
Right. So when Deal or No Deal started to get more traction, like when you were just in general trying to shape like how you were going to be that character on the show, like was it like how much of the character was it just kind of you, or like did you create this persona there? Like how did you kind of come into this character?
No. So that's the other thing. So what happened when I finally said okay, I said, listen, I don't think this is a great show, and I don't think it's a great game, but I'm going to do it. And if I'm going to do it and I'm going to be on network TV in prime time, I'm going to be really funny and really good and really entertaining. Kind of like Letterman, who did the morning show originally, and it just didn't work in the morning. He was so bizarre and everything, but they gave him a late night show, and the rest is history. So I said, I said to them, can I hire, some writers and that? And I did. I hired some friends and comics, and I was loaded. I was ready to pull that trigger. It was so good what I was about to do. But then what happened was on the first episode, and I'll never forget, I have the picture up here. I'll never forget her name. Her name was Karen Van. A young lady comes on. I say, welcome to Deal or No Deal. And a young lady comes on, and I'm standing not like this on Zoom in front of her, 3 feet from her. And I said, tell me a little bit about yourself. And she says, I'm single. I have 3 children. And they were sitting right there in the audience. I don't own a home. I have no health insurance. And I think I'm unemployed. And I went, oh my God, this is a real human being. I've got some jokes and I've got some entertainment, but this is a real human being, because I noticed this is somebody who wasn't really familiar with show business in Hollywood. And she was on a stage, 300 people are around here, 20 cameras are everywhere you look. And, you could see the glaze, just, she was just having this amazing time. And the first offer was something like $20,000. And she said, I said, the offer is $20,000. She went, no deal. And I went, oh my God, no deal, just like that, with no thinking. $20,000. She wasn't from LA or New York. $20,000, I'm sure, is a down payment on a home. I'm sure is enough to pay for health insurance many times over, is probably triple what you have in the bank right now. How can you just say no deal for, I know there's no skill, you can't really have a plan, for a chance to pick the right case? Like, and then it dawned on me that if I try to do something funny and she starts laughing and she's having a good time, I felt like I was pulling the focus from, you really need to, this is real. Aside from me getting a good laugh, aside from me, people thinking, oh, Howie Mandel's funny, I want to watch him, I felt responsible for this human in front of me. And I just want you, not because of me, I want you to do the best that you can possibly do. So it lowered my cadence. I became like I am with my own children. And that's why when an offer would come in and I'd say, Karen Van, if you say no, you have to open another 3 cases. The offer is, listen to me, Karen, $25,000. $25,000 is double what you have in your bank. $25,000 is more than you have ever made in a whole year of work. 25. So, Karen, the question is, listen to me, look at me, deal or no deal? And it became about empathy. It became about, and I was so embarrassed at the end of, we taped this 6 shows, and it was the first time I was ever on TV, not doing stand-up, not doing comedy, not playing a character, not doing a funny voice, just being myself, because it was so important. I don't want somebody's life and their future to hang in the balance based on me distracting them. I didn't like that. And when people went no deal and I knew where they were and what the odds were, it took everything not to just throttle them and going, you idiot, what are you doing? I'm just offering you money for nothing. And that's real. That's real. The $1 million in a case is a chance. It's just a chance. They're good odds, but it took us 4 years to give away the $1 million. So when I finished taping the show, I was so embarrassed about what I had done that when it was going to air, I flew out of the country to a place where they had no TV, someplace in the Caribbean.
Huh.
And when it aired, the next morning, one of the producers called me and said, "You're not going to believe it." I just braced myself, and it went through the roof. And then they called me the next night, and it was even bigger, and the next night bigger, and it became a phenomenon. It was the first time I was just myself. That was only myself and nothing else. Kind of like the guy that's talking to you right now.
So did you, like, because of that learning experience you had there, is that how you like kind of carried on with America's Got Talent, and like you just decided that being yourself, you just have a great personality, that personality, you're realistic in how you talk to people, like that was just kind of the way you were
Well,
going to carry your career?
I just think with the advent now of social media, which I'm very busy on, and what people respond to, the key is now with any kind of business or anything that you're selling or anything that you're doing is engagement. How do you engage an audience? How do you engage a customer? How do you engage anybody? And the one through line through business and show business and everything that is out there is authenticity. So what's, on America's Got Talent, I mean, I the hardest part is being authentic, in the sense that I don't think I serve the contestant or the home audience or anybody on the show if I'm not truly myself. It might be nice to try to be funny and try to get the laugh and try to do that, but at the same time, if I don't like or not, if I don't respond to what you're doing, I think I need to say that. So sometimes that's really tough. Somebody's put everything on the line. I want to be as constructive as possible. And I will say, listen, this is just my opinion. And that's all. It doesn't really matter. It's what you do with my opinion. Maybe my opinion, for as far as you're concerned, is totally wrong and sends you off in a wrong direction. That's possible. The world is about all these things coming at you, and it's how you react. It's not about acting, it's about reacting. But I don't put that much thought into how I'm perceived as much as just being natural. And that was really hard because originally when I started on AGT, we used to travel the show and we would do it tonight from Dallas. So everybody that showed up on stage was a hometown kid. And if you said anything negative, you got booed. I've never been in a situation in show business where the entire audience would turn on me. But what I learned is even though they're doing that, and I get booed a lot if I don't love something that the rest of the audience likes, it's not, I can't take that personally. I'll come off and feel worse about somebody doing something that is obviously failing and me, because I don't want to get booed, going, that was amazing. Then I'll kind of suffer the consequences of non-authentic reactions.
How do you handle being in front of millions of people? You just like view it like I'm in this room, I'm recording with certain people here, and okay, but those other people that will see it aren't in this room with me, or is it just you're just become so natural with it over time? Like, how did you build up that skill to be in front of so many different people and really hold your composure and be calm and confident?
Look, I'm getting calls. I'm so busy. I don't think about. That's not an issue, it really isn't. And it's not anything I think about. It's what I do from that day that I walked out on Yuck Yucks, which was April 19th, 1977, and stood in front of that audience. It's just exciting. It's not, and I've had horrible and will continue to have horrible moments, horribly embarrassing failures publicly. But that's what I do. And that's, it's like if you want to be a boxer, if that's your passion, you're going to get punched. You're going to get hurt. You're going to bleed. And no matter what you do in life, whether it's business, whatever it is, you're going to get punched. You're going to get knocked down. Life is about getting knocked down and getting up. Life, business, everything is about that. It really is. Nobody gets out alive. Everybody's going to go through hardships, so you can't. Otherwise, you're not human. If you live long enough, you have enough relationships, shit's going to happen. So I don't really worry. I'm old now, so I have a better perspective of where I've been and how things have turned out. I understand fear, but fear is the wall. So I'm not afraid. But, and maybe part of that is I'm medicated, because I have so many mental health issues, but I'm kind of numb. But numbness works for me. If you could get a natural numbness, I think you'll be successful.
Good way to look at it. So just the last question that I have, Howie. So at this point in your life, what are some things that you want to be able to do next? Like, I know certain opportunities that come from you saying okay and yes, but like, what are some things that you would love to plan to be able to create or build? Areas you haven't been able to do shows in. And what are some things you aspire to accomplish now?
I don't do any of that. I don't think about what I want to do. I think about what I'm going to do now, today,
Right.
because that's all I really have is now. And whatever I'm doing right now, I want to do it as best as I possibly can. And once it's over, I don't want to think about what I could have done, what I should have done, how was it perceived. I don't want to think about what I'm going to do. I just am saying yes to all opportunities. If you just are open, so I want to remain open and busy. And nobody is more thrilled, excited, and surprised at the fact that even at this age, after all those years, after that 45 years ago, when I got on stage, that people like yourself and others will still call and say, hey, I want to ask you a question. Hey, can you perform here? Hey, can you MC this? Hey, do you want to go to a meeting? Yeah. And when those calls stop, people come up to me all the time and they go, sorry to bother you. Can I take a picture with you? I go, no, it's going to bother me more when nobody wants to, and so I just enjoy every moment because that's all you have and that's all that's real. This moment, that's all that's guaranteed. Because even what you think happened is just your perception of how it happened. I don't know if it really happened that way. That's how I see it. But other people who are in the room, maybe they see it different. I have a plan for this afternoon. Is that going to work out exactly the way I see it? Probably not. Not when I'm in it is not going to be like I think about it. The only thing that's real and I want to be good at right now is this second.
Well, Howie, I appreciate you coming on, share your story. I think there's a lot people can learn from, the adventure and the journey that you've had, and just about being open and willing to take opportunities and to say yes to things. And definitely excited to see what your building continue to grow and the impact that you continue to have on people. So wishing much success. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.